Jones himself had some thoughts on it. He spoke to Big Kev just recently and said, I feel Tom Aspinall is, I don't want to say he's a nobody, but he just hasn't proven or done anything. If there were to be a fight with a guy who's still on our UFC roster, who would not only be financially worth it, but legacy worth it, it would be Alex Pereira. I think a fight would go further. I think that fight would go further for my legacy. So he's just flat out just said, Big Kev, this is what's happening. This is where I'm at. What were your thoughts when you saw that? I saw you texted that over to me. We both looked at it at the same time. We're like, wow, okay.
Ducking into an art form. I mean, it's you can't even say anything anymore. It's just textbook ducking. It cannot be anything else. Like sometimes we get situations where like fighters can selectively turn down fights. I'll get to that in a minute. One might be a little bit better for them or lead to certain better gains and whatnot. And you might say, oh, well, that situation applies here. No, it does not. This is as ducking as ducking. This is ducking. This is like you're asking, give me a great example of ducking. This is ducking. Now, what folks might tell you is, well, wait a second. What about the logic of what he is saying? Is it true that a fight versus Poatan could do more for his legacy? That's not a crazy thing to say. By the way, Aspinall, that could age well long-term in the most amazing of ways too. Like the guy doesn't look like some scrub. He looks like he's awesome, right? So a win over him could be triumphant in ways that one never knows. But certainly, fair to say, beating Poatan would do a lot for your legacy in the sense of you're beating a very popular guy that a lot of people like. That can be beneficial for you. However, not a natural heavyweight. This guy was a middleweight champion in this organization. You're picking a guy who has, fair to say, known wrestling deficiencies, or at a bare minimum, suspected wrestling deficiencies, because it's just not what he does. He comes from kickboxing. Jon's been wrestling. He's 37 years old. Jon's been wrestling his entire life. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that I don't have interest in a Jon Jones versus Poatan fight, but folks, what the fuck are we doing here? Jon Jones holds the belt. Tom Aspinall holds the interim belt and has literally been defending it. That fight, by the way, Jon versus Tom, could age well and would be fucking awesome, and also is arguably, in all likelihood, much more competitive. Hello, he's the interim champion. Your job as the champion is to give a title fight to the most deserving contender, and that can be debatable at times about who that actually is. There's no fucking debate. It's not up for debate. It's the guy with the other belt in this weight class who's been defending it in the absence of the champ. You don't get to do that. Yes, if he had no belt and he was making a choice about which one would I like to do better, I want to fight the smaller guy. And he's like saying he's the same size. I'm saying smaller relative to Tom Aspinall, right? I'm going to get the smaller guy who's not a natural heavyweight, who probably has wrestling deficiencies, who the fans adore. Yes, that's the guy I want to fight. That's not a crazy thought. It's just an irrelevant thought when you're staring down the barrel of Tom Aspinall and then you say, no mas, I want the former middleweight champion. Holy shit, folks. You will very rarely see somebody openly discuss ducking at the highest level this nakedly in your fight watching life. It doesn't come much more blatant than this. Ducking in every sense of the word, laid out bare for you to see. There's no other description available about what that is.
How outrageous would it be if this scenario played out where somehow Jon Jones ends up fighting Alex Pereira after this, with Tom Aspinall still sitting on the sideline with some kind of interim title, and Jon Jones still having somehow the title around his waist?
I don't think it's necessarily all that crazy. They might just do it. They might just tell you, Tom, I'll tell you what, buddy, we love you, but we just don't give a fuck about any of these things. They don't mean anything. I mean, here's what they want to do with the belt. When they want it to mean something, they treat it like it means something. And then when they don't want it to mean something, they just want you to pretend that that's not applying, or, hey, we'll hit pause this time and, we'll just forget about it. And then we want it to count again. We'll bring it back and make it feel like you count again. Meanwhile, it's like, right, you don't get to do that. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Once you begin to tell us that this thing doesn't mean shit, then you can't just unsee that. It becomes very difficult. And there's a real question about whether he deserves to be champion at this point anyway, just sort of given the nature of the division. And then you're going to go away from the guy who's undefeated, who's been blowing the fucking doors off the other contenders, who's begging for this fight, who represents an emergent, a robust but still emergent market overseas, and you're going to say no to that guy. Again, it's not like I don't have interest in Jones versus Poatan, and for those reasons, it could well end up being made. But holy shit, you will rarely ever. I've seen people duck in boxing, and they usually have to kind of finagle it, and there's all kinds of things they have to do. Canelo, to me, unfortunately, I think is engaging in behavior that's at least he's, well, it's pretty similar. Munguia would maybe be a slightly different kind of variant of that, and depending who he goes next, I guess we'll see. But just to be like, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I just don't want to fight him. It's like, it's a harder fight and less people know him, I think. And so people like this guy, and he's smaller, and maybe he can't wrestle. He doesn't deserve this fight at all, but yeah, I would rather have that one. Like, what are you saying? Like, if that's not ducking, what is that? What do you call not unifying titles for a guy who's been defending the interim title in your absence? And by the way, not like eking through, demolishing these guys, turning them into bums that they're not, but like making them look that way. Holy crap. It will take I've been watching the fight game a long time. It will take a very long time before you see something like this again.
If you're in Tom's shoes, he's a nice guy. He's trying to do the trash talk. He'll probably be there on the night. He'll probably try to get in the, what would you do in Tom's shoes if you were in his shoes right now?
Honestly, I'm not saying you have to go the Colby Covington route, but being the buddy guy is, what has that done for him? What has that done? It's done nothing. You know what I mean? Like, what is that? And listen, I'm not telling him, I want to be very clear about this. I don't believe in telling guys to do things that they don't want to do or be somebody that they're not. I think that ends up getting people into places where they're unhappy. They make mistakes. They just don't want to do that stuff. That's really, I'm not telling Tom Aspinall to be anything other than what he is. And again, that might result in them just telling Tom, you got to defend this fucking interim title again. Like, you know what I mean? Because here's the thing, like, what if Jon loses to Poatan? Like, you're gonna have to run that one back, and like Tom's just gonna be sitting there. It doesn't even make sense. It literally doesn't even make sense. But the reality is, you just have to look at it for what it is. Like, dude, nice guys finish last. That's just, the fight game is that way. You know, sometimes nice guys can get ahead in the sport. Max Holloway's obviously done extremely well, but in terms of like trying to get a fight, you can go too far and do the Shannon, the Cannon Briggs thing where you're following the guy in your wakeboard and, you know, what's up, champ? But, you know, in general, the reality is closed mouth don't get fed. You really, really have to go after these guys and, you know, create an incentive for the fans to like, that's kind of the reality. The one sort of logic to Jon's argument here is that, you know, the fans so love Poatan and would love to see him at heavyweight, including me, I'm sure, and including you, right?
Yeah.
That they wouldn't really protest. I mean, there'd probably be there would be some protests for sure, actually. But in general, they would probably look the other way by fight time because they would just want to see what happened. He has to create a world where that decision becomes much harder to make. And you have to do that by actively lobbying your case and just kind of being nice and waiting for people to come around and do nice things for you. This is not the kind of game where that goes that way.